Yeah, there you go, recording in progress. The other thing is that if anybody wants to take photographs or video clips or whatever, put them up on social media, we'd be very happy with that, or send them to hello@equalcare.co-op. But if anybody here does not want to appear in any of those, please identify yourself now, so that anybody that's taking photographs or whatever, don't take any of the people that put their hands up now. Everybody looks happy, that's good. Great. So those are some of the sort of mechanical bits and pieces. The next thing is that anybody that's got a lanyard has got something to do with the organisation of this. And therefore, if you need any help or you want to know anything, they're the people to speak to. We've got some key people who ought to identify themselves that are fairly new to the organisation. So we've got Marcus Coleman, who is our new software engineer. Matt, our main software engineer, unfortunately couldn't make it today. We've also got Mark. There he is. So Mark is pretty new to us, and he's our guy that looks after all the communications. We've got Maimuna, who is there, who is recently turned up to study Equal Care Co-op for a PhD. And is Luke here?
I saw you just arrived.
Oh, there he is. And Luke is the guy that is the key, the fundamental, the most important figure for the Londons. This is an important initiative.
Most important thing to hear from the London side.
Well, yeah. There he is, good timing. Okay, we've already mentioned COVID, which is a pain. So obviously it's important that this doesn't become a super spreader event. And there are COVID tests available. And obviously just be aware that care workers need to be extremely careful. A lot of people here are care workers. So anybody's not aware of that, keeping an eye on hand sanitizing and not sort of spreading flu and COVID is kind of fundamental. So that's just something to be aware of. Anybody who's nervous about that wants to get tested, there are tests available outside. Right. So first thing, I'm supposed to introduce myself. So okay, I suppose I should. Yeah. So I'm Trevor Hilder, and I am the chair of the Purpose Circle. I became an investor member with my wife Sonia, who's sitting over there. There's Sonia, in March 2022. And what I got introduced to Emma and Kate at an extremely strange weekend on the island of Bute in October 2021. And a colleague of ours thought we ought to get to know each other. And he introduced us. And Kate and Emma explained about Equal Care Co-op, and I sort of told them a bit about my background. I have a background that I'm coming up to my 50th anniversary in information technology in January. So I started in it when it was rooms full of air conditioned equipment, punch cards, tapes going around. It's changed a bit since then. So I have a lot of experience in IT, and I've always been interested in using IT to support humanity and to support making organizations as human as they can be. So when I heard about Equal Care, the way it works, I thought, oh, this is really special. So I actually came up at the end of October 2021 when it was pouring with rain. We thought the place was going to flood, as Hebden Bridge tends to do. We were lucky. I spent 3 days here. I teach a little course about how organizations work, so we did that. I got introduced to lots of people. We went to see Jen and Monica, who were in the room over there. But I wanted to get a sense of the organization, and I was so impressed but I wrote a little report about it and said to Emma, do I understand this? Have I got it right? She seemed to think I did understand it. And I asked her how I could help. So Sonia and I, she said, we need money, funny enough. So we became investor members, and I started getting involved in the IT. And I've gone on from there to join the purpose circle. Here I am as the chair, which I'm delighted to be, because I kind of feel this is the chance to do a pretty special piece of work. I think Equal Care is a very special organisation that has got a fantastic future as the way that care is going to be done by everybody. You don't just think of it as just a local thing. It's scalable. That's very, very important. So I'm going to hand over now to Emma and Kate to talk about the annual report.
Very much, Trevor. Hello, everybody. This is amazing. The first in-person event and gathering since 2019. Before, which was, yes, before the world changed. And we are now here again. A few years later, we made it through. Thanks in no small part to many of the people in this room and many of the people out of it. So just before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the presence of everybody here. Thank you so much for coming. It really feels just so special. And I would also like to acknowledge the people that haven't been able to make it today, the people that Equal Care has supported over the years who are no longer with us, workers who are doing their shift right now, people who are at home or out or just haven't been able to come. And so yes, they haven't with us too, and all members and fundamental parts of our small but growing cooperative. So it always feels a bit weird talking about the annual report, because that was, you know, that financial year ended 6 months ago. Think about it. Yeah, so we always say, what happened then? Oh yeah, that and that and that. So this is our timeline, which is covering up to March 2023. And April 2022 was the month that our Back on Track offer had been running for about a month, and it looked like it was going to be okay. So thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So this was a really, really key community share offer that we needed to launch because 2 years of COVID had given us a real drubbing, and we needed cash in order to be able to continue and then to grow. So the offer itself, one of its mandates was to ensure that Equal Care was able to grow, because we'd spent the last 2 years kind of like that. And the offer continued to run throughout the year, which also gave us this incredible opportunity to bring on new investor members and people with new connections, new ideas. Obviously, Trevor and Sonia joined, but we also had the Trellis Foundation, which is a new cooperatively focused foundation to invest in us. And they invested £45,000, I believe. And then also Resolution Ventures, which is the venture arm of the Real Living Wage Foundation. So this was quite something. So they came on as investor members as well. The second thing that happened, which was right from the beginning to the end of that year, was our social care data analytics project, funded by the Health Foundation, which sounds very dry, but in fact turned out really not to be at all. So this was a project looking at how we buy our care, where the power sits in who makes those decisions about funding, what that service eventually looks like once it actually reaches the people who are doing the giving and the people who are doing the receiving, and sort of how tendering and commissioning works, really, which is quite a fuzzy area for a lot of people who then are actually at the sharp end of a lot of those decisions. what we discovered, well, so we did several workshops. There's the report that's come out of it called Buying Our Care. And most of those workshops, we found quite a lot of what we expected. But one of them we did with the Muslim community in Calderdale, and a few stories emerged through that workshop that then caught the attention of local councillors, caught the attention of the wider community. A new group was formed called Noe Savil, which means path of light. So this is all family and people receiving support that had not been getting the best out of services, had not had been receiving kind of discriminatory practice and care. So being fed bacon sandwiches, that kind of thing. That's just the least of it. And as a result of that piece of work, a scrutiny committee kind of brought together at the council. They did a report, the council started working on it, and there has been some huge movement on both sides. The council really did step up in response to it, but the report itself was the catalyst for that huge piece of work that perhaps the new director of adult social care at Calderdale Council was not particularly grateful for, but she did rise to the occasion. So that is a piece of work that we're really proud of. It's an aspect of Equal Care's approach, which shows that it's not just about the work of giving and receiving the care. There is a big campaigning aspect to our purpose in life, and this is kind of one of the pieces of work which we could really point to and go, that made a difference. That made a really big difference.
So as Emma talked about, there was a mandate to grow. We grew, which was great. So we did our big recruitment campaign last summer. We did a big push on that, and we also started to employ care and support workers. So time at the last AGM, we just had independent care and support workers. We were talking about it. We finally did it, which meant we actually got to offer meaningful choice about employments in the co-op. So you could come on as either self-employed, independent, or employed. And a lot of our workers who originally came on, I'm looking at one right now, at the beginning, many years ago, I don't know if I want to be self-employed, it's really scary. And then when we said, right, who wants to be employed? Loads of people were like, nah, love it, actually, really love it over here. So that was really nice. So yeah, but finally there was a meaningful choice that we could offer. Yeah.
Should we just move? Oh, we won us, yes, yeah. So we won whole contracting with Calderdale as well. And then there was an extremely busy quarter, which we'll talk about in the next slides, I think. This is after the launch of our recruitment campaign, once we had enough money in the bank to be able to put resources towards that. And there was a point at which it was, oh, recruitment crisis in social care? What recruitment crisis? We were fairly inundated. So
We got to feel quite smart.
yes, and that's always. So we grew by an average of 22% a month in October, November, and December before it then sort of started to flatten out again. So that was a very busy quarter, but we're starting to see that there is a sort of seasonal pattern to the way that Equal Care grows, and it's actually very likely that we're going to be seeing that again this year.
We also, Lottie, but we'll talk about London and Lottie in the next slides.
Oh, yes. So
Everyone loves a slide with loads of words, right?
yeah, that's fine. We got to gross profit at the end of March, which after several years of effectively running it, we were sort of subsidising the operational cost of the care through the community investment, because Equal Care's business model, our revenue model, means that we need to get to a certain size, a larger size than your average domiciliary care agency before we become, before we get to our break even. So we got to our gross profit, which was a huge achievement. It was one of the things that we set out to do in the Back on Track offer, and that we haven't deviated from. So that is still the case.
London's happening.
Yes.
So we finally got some funding for London. We've been talking about London for a while. You've probably all heard us talk about it. Luke spoke at the last AGM. We finally got some money. So I always forget what it stands for. LOTTE, the London Office of Technology and Innovation, hereby known as LOTTE. gave some money to allow the project to start, meaning like being worked on in a paid for capacity. Big shout out to Luke at the back that's come up from London this morning. Amazing stuff. So yeah, so the money came in, the planning started, and the goal for and you'll probably hear a lot more about it in the next AGM. But for now, the planning is around starting 5 teams in Clacton, leaning on and using kind of local organisations that already exist. So it's what we call the kind of care commons, tagging it into Clacton Care Commons. So what we can do is really strengthen and diversify the teams getting support in Clacton with all of these amazing organisations. So working in a really kind of holistic way. And yeah, so Luke's been incredibly busy down there. So thank you, and thank you to Lottie and Adam and lots of other people that did a lot of work on the application plan. So thanks.
So we rebuilt the platform. It turned out that that was something that we needed to do. So there was progression kind of throughout the year of the development of the platform. The key kind of new feature that we were able to introduce last year was around bookings, the calendar, and being able to just start sort of keeping track of who's going where and who's doing what, which sounds like, I mean, it's obviously a very core piece of the technology. It is the biggest piece, it is the hardest piece to get right. So that is one that we're still working on now. Yes, kind of solved a few sort of issues in the back end. I still have various photos from Matt at kind of 3 in the morning while he was redeveloping like a piece or two of it. But the platform continues to progress, yeah.
We've talked about recruitment. It's not going to go into loads, but we effectively doubled in size between October and December last year, and we are consistently growing. So averaging around 3 new people a month. Someone's busier, again, it's seasonal. But what's really interesting is at the moment, we're about 30% of new people that we're welcoming are brand new to the sector, which I think everybody here knows that's only a positive thing. So again, really looking, one of our wants as equal care is to really try and stop that revolving door that happens in care where people just go from agency to agency to agency, and where care is very much seen as a prospectless, you know, probably not even a career to a lot of people, right? So there's no prospects, you just move from thing to thing to thing. So yeah, 30% of them, quite a few of them are brand new to the sector completely. Some of them are OTs, diagnostic radiographers. We've got a real mix of people that are coming to equal care, which is amazing. And then
Graphic design,
yeah, we've got some incredible skill sets. It's fascinating. Yeah, so sorry, that's my next page. And we also launched hats, which links into this. So rather than recruiting a new manager, we sort of cut up what a new manager might do. Is again the whole thing of this self-managing. You can pay people better because people take on that work. So rather than bringing on a new manager after Jill retired, we sort of split up what that might look like and went, how can we divide that work up? So we launched what we call hats. So we have recruiter hats, team starter hats to begin with. So 4 of our care and support workers were trained up, 2 to do the full recruitment process and 2 to launch new teams, which was amazing. We've now got all sorts of different hats. We've got a health and safety hat, big up Liz. We've got some road wranglers, we've got finance and money hats. We've got lots of people who are stepping up and learning these new skill sets, which is amazing for the organisation. It's amazing again to sort of stop this revolving door idea. And so the goal is for people to progress through equal care, but there are only so many seats at the table. So our hope is that as people leave, if they do leave, they can move on to managerial positions. But at the moment, no one's leaving. So we can't prove that. And that's a great reason why we can't prove that theory. And yeah, so we've linked in these hats into the career progression, specifically around our pay policy. And I just wanted to normally tell a little story. I know we're not great on time, but we've got some amazing people that have stepped in and stepped up and skilled up to do some work. But I just want to tell the story of 2 of them very quickly. They're both here today, Molly and Kat. So again, lots of amazing people, but I think Kat, she's wonderful. She basically, before we started taking on people's hats, because we did a recruitment process for it internally for these things. Kat spent the entire 20 to 30 minute chat interview with me telling me why we absolutely shouldn't give her this job. Why she was definitely terrible. And all of the skills and experience that she had was some sort of fluke or an unfair advantage that she might have had through something that shouldn't have happened. And I was like, you realise what you've just done here, right? We gave her, so we trained up Kat to do the recruitment job because she'd be great. She smashed it once she stopped telling us why she shouldn't do it. And yeah, just seeing that growth has been just so powerful. I now genuinely, we sat on an interview a couple of months ago with Alex, and I walked away from it and learned some stuff from Kat. So it's just been so amazing seeing people like specifically grow. And I think, there's so many people that come to us from agencies, spending years in agencies, basically being told subtly, or sometimes completely, fully, you are rubbish. Stay in your lane, right? These are words that a lot of people in this room have heard. Stay in your lane, stop. We don't want your opinion. To see people go, actually, yeah, I can do this. It's just been so powerful. And then Molly over here, who trained up to be a team starter. And I think of Molly as sort of being someone that came in and was like, yeah, pretty good. No one's just really listened to it. but with complete humility. And I think the term we use really is just like seeing her completely fly. So, do this thing, and then Molly, like 2 minutes later, will be like, I did that thing, and then I created a complete template so that now anybody else that needs to do that thing can do the thing this way, and it's really obvious for them. So just seeing this incredible route, so Emma sat down with Molly a lot, we talked about development plans, and yeah, just seeing so many people in this room fly, and I've given 2 specific examples, but they're all over this room, so talk to people. Yeah, and that's the challenges. Yeah, we've got a minute. Sickness. Sickness. So our rate of growth was steady, but what we did find was we had, coming into winter particularly, quite high rates of sickness. So what we ended up having was these new people coming in. So again, this rate of growth that we talked about was then sort of balanced out by a few people on long-term sick, and a few people going on and off sick, which just created a huge amount of back office admin, as a lot of people in this room can contest to. I also went off on long-term sick. So I was off for 2 months. It all got a bit much. And I know this is the challenges section, but it was amazing. I needed it. Well, my body told me I needed it. I didn't want to take 2 months off, but I had to. But everyone really stepped up. That leave was one to cover. So I lived the sickness. Emma lived the cover while I was off.
Yeah. So there are a couple of elements that made finding cover really, really challenging. I mean, cover is an issue for any organisation working in care or in health. For us, yes, obviously the sickness. I think there was the maximum number of times that we found cover for a single shift was 5. So, oh, it's all right, we've got someone to cover. Oh, that's it. Oh, we've got someone to cover. Oh, no, they can't do it. Oh, so sort of in going through that, just rise this sort of background level of stress kind of really rises in the chats and the teams. And that is often the moment where we see kind of the best of people, because people were pulling together, they were supporting one another, everyone was doing everything that they could, but there was definitely this sense over winter in particular of the organisation under strain. So then there were also weaknesses in the systems. So with the calendar just being launched, being able to transition there was sort of like tech issues, which has sort of compounded some of these problems. It is then something that is just, it has been front and center for a while, and it's something that we're kind of chipping away at piece by piece, and we definitely don't think that we're going to be in a situation again this winter. But yes, obviously with COVID and infections and so on, there has to be that kind of level of resilience that's in our teams to make sure that the care happens and to make sure that it goes ahead. No, full funding. Yes. Funding. So yes, as you will see in the accounts section a little bit later, we didn't achieve the levels of grants that we had the previous year. So I think there's only £15,000 worth of grants that came in. The discovery, I guess, it's different when you know something kind of cognitively and then when you just really know something. And it was this year that we knew that there really isn't any other viable way for cooperatives like us to be able to attract funding without relying on community shares or something like it. Yes, we did have a really positive note at the end of the year when we discovered that we had won the Lottie grant. Yeah, it definitely really brought home that Equal Care's core funding to be able to continue to fund software engineers, to fund the growth kind of work, will really need to come from community investment in some shape or form. Numbers. I'm gonna whip through these. You will get a link to this after the session. But yeah, just to pick out a few things. So our average monthly turnover did not change, which was, I was expecting it to kind of double, but it didn't even. So
Sometimes
although
people,
yeah, people were taking time off, but they were staying, they weren't leaving. Which is really key. In terms of our total hours, this rose quite significantly towards the end of the year. So that's when we started to see that at the end of the calendar year, so when we started to see that growth. The average hourly rates went up, the real living wage changed, so the salary rate changed for our employed workers. And then you can see the changes really in the year before, so for the gross profit margin, and then the numbers of people supported from 35 to 67 at the end of the year, and then from 24 and 21, 22 to 43 and 22, 23. So we did this really, it's kind of tough, but we really did get back on track during this year. And then you can see our monthly growth average, although obviously you'll appreciate that kind of went all over the place during the year, but it averaged out to around 5.6%. And I've actually just put a couple of comparison markers so that you can see where we are now, halfway through this current financial year. So the average turnover per month, 63,000 thereabouts, and then 33,000 and then 23,000 in the years before. So you can see that Equal Care is growing, and then our total hours year to date is actually nearly up to the total number of hours we did in 21-22 at 13,467. So good news. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to whip through this, but I just wanted to, because not everyone knows how we've, so Equal Care builds teams. The teams are owned by the person getting support. There's choose their team members join. The idea is that you get consistent relationships over time. We played a little bit with data. This is an example of one of our care and support workers. This is not Equal Care. This is the number of people that she supported at her previous agency over the period that she was there, from November 19 to September 2020. These are all, those lines are all individuals. She supported 38 people in total. At one point they took her off. You can see the really key relationship there in blue, and they took her off that relationship, and they gave her lots and lots of different ones. And then she was back on that relationship again a little bit later in the year. Now, if we move forward to see that same person at Equal Care. Thank you. So this is when she joined Equal Care. So joining a couple of teams, some of them end, sometimes teams end. You can see if somebody reaches the end of their lives. Sometimes they end because the relationship doesn't work out. You know, so there are obviously reasons for leaving a team. But you can see since October last year, or September last year, I think that is, she's settled into a pattern that is absolutely natural for her. So this doesn't look the same for everybody. This is pretty similar for most people, and that as a human being, the relationships that you want to develop and build, you will gravitate towards the right number that is there for you. And so she has 3 key relationships, as you can see, that she's stayed with very consistently. And that's consistent for the person who's receiving that support as well. They know her, she knows them. And next one, thank you. This just shows the distribution of the number of workers per team. So you can see that by far the largest number of teams have 1 or 2 people in them. So the teams are small. If you're getting support from Equal Care, you'll get support from the same person, the same 2 people, the same 2 or 3 people. You can see as well, as we go further up to the end, this is where Equal Care started doing much more complex care teams. So we're looking at kind of 24/7 care. We're looking at kind of NHS funded often, or teams that have a huge number of shifts. So that's when you start to see the number of team members in that team rise. Like, so if agencies actually gave us their data, just imagine what the graph would look like for them. It wouldn't look like that. Yeah, it really wouldn't. Okay, this is the last data slide. But this is just to show the pattern of the number of hours per month, as that was a question asked by Co-ops UK. Where's Linda? So this is the hours of support per month, and so you can see how they've been rising. You can see September, October, November, December 2022, as you can see those big steps up, and then it's leveled out, but we are still growing at around 4 or 5% a month. Okay, numbers. Next slide, please. I would now like to not this one, not Kate to you all, and Zai and Richard. Kate will tell you a bit about herself, but we first started working with Kate in October 2022. Yes, so that was a fair amount of cover to arrange there. But I asked Kate to speak today because it's so much better to hear it from me or Kate about her experience of Equal Care, and also it is your team that has been, I think, the first team that Equal Care really sort of stepped into to work with on the sort of the NHS kind of side of things. So over to you, Kate.
Hello everyone, I'm Kate, as Emma currently said. I've got complex needs requiring significant personal care because I've had MS for the grand time of 31 and can no longer move from the neck down. I live in Todd, the dueling Calderdown's Crown, and I receive continuing health care from the NHS. I've received care from numerous agencies over the last few years, and it's been a nightmare. You go from one crisis to the next. I've received care from Equal Care since the 8th of October 2022. So I think that's why the numbers have gone up. I think I am the first most complex care package that Equal Care has taken on. And I'd like to thank Emma in particular because she's worked tirelessly to make my package work, even filling in herself. It's a nightmare because I have care at 6:30 in the morning. And it was particularly difficult when we were trying to recruit staff. So thank you, Emma, I really appreciate it. When you need carers, I'm sure a lot of you know, it's a very scary place because you're in other people's hands. And I was always worried that the people supporting me would just stop with very little notice. That's happened to me several times. And that they wouldn't turn up or they turn up late, or they've come and I've never met them before. If you need personal care, that isn't a nice place to be, and that they're not trained properly. I've now got a brilliant team of 9 people who are incredibly loyal and fill in regularly when we've got gaps at the last minute. And they're all self-employed, I think, now, aren't they, Emma? More or less. So I've never been left in the lurch. And I'd like to thank my mother, and Kenny, for here today. Oh, hi, Ken. Because of their loyalty and support, much more relaxed with equal care than I've been before. Good care is essential for me, because although I am so impaired, I do still work, and getting out in time to go to work is essential. If I didn't work, then my sort of well-being, thank you, would be a disaster. I'd end up sitting at home watching telly. And I know that my care, well, my health would deteriorate significantly. I work as a non-exec director at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals. I co-chair the National Disabled NHS Directors Network, and I do research with Yorkshire and Humber Patient Safety Research Centre, where we're looking at safe care in the home, and I lead on that theme. So you'll appreciate, I'm sure, that I look at the provision of care from both sides, and I'll always be relieved that equal care is with me. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. We've got Gregor coming online. He's the treasurer of the accounts. I forgot to thank Joe for doing the minutes, which I should have done. And Adam's doing all the tech stuff. I should have said that.
Hello, everyone. Can I just first check if you can hear me okay? This is the first sound test.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm Gregor. I'm a Purpose Circle member, the treasurer, and also an investor member in Equal Care. Apologies, I can't be there in person. I would have loved to come, but I'm up in Scotland, and other things meant I couldn't make it, unfortunately, today. The purpose of this section is just to provide a bit of an overview of the financial statements. One of the key items in the agenda of the AGM is just to formally adopt those financial statements for the year. I'm not going to repeat things which Emma has already capably taken the group through, but I'll be happy to answer questions. We do also have a spot for Q&A. So I trust that a version of the accounts is either visible to everybody or distributed. Is that right?
Gregor,
Yes.
you just pause for 30 seconds. We're trying to get you on the screen. You're currently talking to us in some sort of omnipotent way. It's kind of amazing.
Give me 1 second. The screen.
Okay, cool. Good. So if the accounts have been distributed already, what you'll see there when you take a read through is that there's a loss for the financial year. That is what we expected when we set out this financial year, is to have that loss. You also see, if you look at the profit and loss account for the year, a couple of key numbers in there. You can see the revenue growth that Emma's talking about so far in the presentation. That's been driven by Equal Care delivering more care for people. and that's risen threefold or 3 times from the number in the prior financial year, which is great. The other really big milestone that Equal Care hit was to achieve a gross profit, but that was achieved during the latter half of the financial year. So you do still see that there's a gross loss, a small gross loss of about £9,000 for the full year ending March 2023, but in month that was a positive number towards the end of the year, which is a great step forward. And you can also see there's still an operating loss, and that's driven by the expenses which support the growth, securing funding and maintaining the platform. And basically, as Emma's already mentioned, Equal Care needs to get bigger in order to cover these costs and turn that into an operating profit in future years. Emma's already mentioned as well other operating income. That's the voluntary income and grants, which have declined, as Emma's already noted, before the Lottie bid came through. And the tax on loss is something that Emma and the team have done a lot of work to secure that favourable number, which is it's through a tax credit scheme from HMRC. We actually receive a decent amount of money back in respect of some of the expenditure that we make. So that's the key numbers on the profit and loss account, and the balance sheets on the following page. That basically shows a couple of numbers on there just to pull out. The intangible asset, that relates to the capitalised salaries of the platform that the Equal Care is working on. You can see that we held cash of £152,000 as of the end of March, and that you can see the share capital has grown compared to the prior year. That's as we took more investment to facilitate the growth that's required. I'm happy to pause there and I think we've got space for a Q&A section, and I know we've received some questions which we can answer. I can see one. Is it Carmen online?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't send this one in advance, but I did want to hear the presentation first anyway. So otherwise I would have just sent in loads and loads of questions, which would have been pointless. So I just wanted to pick up. You were referring to it as was Emma in the little bit that I heard, because I was kind of on and off buses this morning, talking about the gross profit. So presumably the accounting period delivered to budget. So can you just confirm whether it did or not? So that's really what I'm after. I mean, you said it wasn't unexpected. And obviously that's why you went out to do the share offer, and I totally understood that, and I was on the call when you sought the share offer. So we I'm kind of quite au fait with what was going on there, but it's just if you could confirm that was to budget, and that there is a kind of obviously a budgetary control system in place in the organisation, just to reassure me.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. So there is a budgetary control system in place. We do, as a purpose circle, we review the result on every other month. We have a meeting, so we're 6 times a year reviewing the result, and we're reforecasting the future also at the same period, the same frequency. So we are constantly looking at it, and Emma and the team are constantly looking at it. The overall loss was expected in the plan. But I think it's fair to say we weren't expecting, we have grown slower than what we originally planned to do. And that is, there's various reasons for that Emma would be much better placed to speak to than I. We have grown, but we've not grown as fast as we had originally hoped. I think it's fair to say. Emma, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, so some of the forecasts that we had for the Back on Track offer, we expected to start seeing growth happen from more during the summer months rather than into the autumn, and mostly due to kind of when the money hit the bank, and was that was one of the stoppers for them being able to get the recruitment campaign up and running and going. And then we also saw, well, just those seasonal effects of people tend not to apply for care work jobs in the summer, and that is something that we're still seeing. Yeah, just from September starting, we've already seen a bump just this month in the number of applications coming through, like a significant bump. So yes, it's a seasonal thing, but we are currently forecast to achieve break even this financial year.
Yay. Good news. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. That was the only question I had after having listened to Emma. Thank you.
We've got some other questions here as well from Cork UK. I'm just going to read these out. Gregor, can you hear me?
I can.
Cool. Okay. So, how many clients are on the books, and how many care? Sorry.
We've answered that one.
Oh, that one. Okay. Why have wage costs doubled between 22 and 2023? It seems most of this is from taking on more staff for back office admin roles. How are you utilising these roles to expand the business?
So I'll start this one, and then I'll ask Emma to chip in as well. But the wage costs have doubled 22 to 23 because we've delivered a lot more care. So those are in costs of sales, and you can see that those costs have gone up significantly because we've got more employed workers now delivering care. We have those now, whereas we didn't before. And the administrative salaries, previously we were capitalising the costs of the platform development and the salaries, the couple of roles associated with the development of the platform. But we've now switched to recognising those expenses as they're incurring, because more broadly speaking, we're saying that it's platform maintenance rather than straight platform development. And so that's resulted in a big, what seems to be a big increase in the admin salaries, but it's just a change of classification, where previously we were capitalising those salaries and now we're not. There was also other roles that we've added to support the growth, including a comms officer. I think I'll ask Emma to speak to that as well, because that's a key role that we've added during the financial year.
Yeah, but that is the only new administrative sort of categorised role that we brought on in that financial year, and the results. But yeah, we haven't actually grown the administrative kind of costs or sort of back end of like office costs in the business aside from that.
Okay, second of 3 questions. Why did the software costs amount to 20k in 2023, up from 14k in 2022? How does this interact with the platform that is built and managed internally? And is it a necessary spend on tech overall when combined with 47k appreciation of assets?
It's a good question. Yeah, so that expenditure went up mostly because of the platform costs. So we use AWS, which is a type of server that the platform runs on, and because more people were starting to use the platform, those costs started going up. We also ran out of our freebies that we got from them during the year as well. So that was an added cost, and we're also still paying for some third-party technology that we are looking to stop in the next couple of months. So those costs should flatten out for the next year.
Okay, and the last question. Why is the corporation tax rebate lower in 23 compared to 22 when the loss to which it refers is greater? Is this something to do with the R&D tax credits?
Thanks, Adam. Yes, is the short answer. It's driven by the R&D tax credits. We actually, the number that we recognised in 2022 for the R&D tax credits was multiple years worth of money that we were getting back from HMRC. I think it was 2 or 3 years. Whereas the number for 2023 is just 1 year, so that's why the number is much lower. Yeah, and that's driven not by our losses, but it's driven by the nature of the spend that we can claim back from HMRC, which is a bit different. But yes, I'd be happy to answer more questions directly with Cooperatives UK if they still have any outstanding on that one.
That's the last report, okay. We are a little bit over time. But if there's any more questions in the room or online that anyone really wants to ask, we can do it. Otherwise, we can move on. But anyone thirsting to ask a question? Amazing. Yeah, Trevor, resolutions, appoint.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you,
Thanks,
Brenda.
Regan.
No bother.
Okay, so, so we're giving you a vote to accept the reports and the accounts. So this is basically, you can't vote if you're not a member. If you are a member, if you accept the report and accounts, please put up your hand or wave your hand now.
Trevor, can you bring your mic to your mouth?
Okay, so you accept the accounts? Yeah. Okay, anybody rejecting the accounts? The reports? No?
Just checking my counting online.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can online. Any abstentions? One abstention. Okay, so I think we have a majority, do we? What's it looking like online? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we have a sort of formal, a little formality here. A resolution not to appoint an auditor in accordance with section 84 of the Act that governs this. So anybody for not appointing an auditor, please raise your hand.
Is that what we want?
We want not to report. We don't want to.
It's a small company exemption, so it's.
Yeah.
It's an exemption when we don't have to appoint an auditor. Because it will cost us money and do us any favours. So anybody accepting not to appoint an auditor. And online? You seen it?
Yeah, we're all good.
Yeah. Anybody rejecting that? Why would you do that? Any abstentions? Okay, accepted. Right, so the next thing to do is the introduction of new purpose circle members. I think I've already introduced myself. So Vivek, would you like to come and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Vivek, and I joined the Purpose Circle last year. I became an investment member in Equal Care when the Back on Track offer was available, and it was really a way for me to support Equal Care, become aware of what Equal Care was doing when they had won the award from Nesta many years ago. But I actually was busy at that time because I'd become an unexpected carer for my parents who were based in India. And that had taken me on a journey of about 10 years. And so when I finally came to the end of that journey, both my parents had passed away, I wanted to, social care became a very important thing for me. And I wanted to try and find a way of doing something to make social care better. And when I looked around, Equal Care, as Trevor had said, was one of the leaders in rethinking how do we start to make social care happen in a way where we're putting the care, the relationship on which care is based at the center, not the financialization of the industry. The industry typically is driven by finance, profit, rather than is essential. And so I'm really I'm glad to have invested, and then Emma asked me to join the Purpose Circle. And then I think I asked some questions about finance, And so I've been asked to now become the treasurer. Gregor has become much busier with another child and a promotion. And so I hope you'll continue to support me. But that's a little bit about me and why I got involved. And I look forward to going on this journey, and maybe next year, especially if there's a change of government, we might start to see something big happen in this area. I'm looking forward to being on that journey with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, we've also got Jed and Monica joint first, so I'm going to bring them a microphone so they can introduce themselves. Hello, is this working? Can you hear this?
No.
You need to speak very closely into the mic.
Okay, yes, I think we see the effective social equal care since 2019. Very much enthusiastic about the equal care and the fact that carers get treated to them. And as a person receiving, they also expect the same people to go along. And why that's how you develop a very special personal relationship with them. Therefore, in that project, I'm very pleased to see you've got care succeed, and really the only contribution I can make is by joining a first circle, overseeing what's happening, and by chipping where I can, to use the topic. You know, the way things are, it looks that it's going the way it should do. There is a tremendous need for a much more advanced form of equal care in this country, whereby the care is paid properly and it's widespread and it's non-financial. So much social is used the means of profit for shareholders, which needs to tell you about. Okay.
Hello, I'm Monica, and I've been on the receiving end of some deep work care agencies over the years. Things have improved dramatically, I think, since we've got equal care. Staff come, we know them, they like the course, and we've really enjoyed watching the progress of equal care. When we first said about it, we thought, some wonderful ideas, but we're never doing it. Obviously, so well done, everybody.
Okay, we've got the next thing, thanks for that. It's a formality for a third of the directors have to step down every year. Gregor is stepping down for real, staying step down as treasurer on Purpose Circle. Felix has already said he's taking that one up. And the other two that are stepping down, you two.
Bye.
Bye. Then we have a vote to reappoint directors that step down. So all in favour of stepping back up again. Anybody against? You dare? Oh, he's put his hand down. He doesn't dare. Any abstentions? Oh, that's pretty good. Isn't it? Right. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Also talk about vacancies.
Yes, good point. We've actually got we've got vacancies on the Purpose Circle. So we've got vacancies for directors. We're actually looking for 3 advocates or supportive members, and one worker member to step up for the purpose of. We're not asking anybody to do that now, but we would like to see those 4 members step up. So if you would like to step up, say 3 people who are either advocates or supportive, 1 worker. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. Okay. Emma. Rules about care.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Please come and talk about that.
It's caught up.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. A little bit about the money. So just to put this into perspective, when Equal Care first started out, platforms were really cool. And there was venture capital pouring into platforms for food, platforms for care, platforms for nurses, platforms for dogs, there was just really platform mad. So our competitors at that time, the average venture capital investment into a care platform was around 2.5 million for the beginning, just to start. And we were getting at what's called Series A, anything between around 6 million to 15. And I think the largest that I saw was 30 million pounds. So just have those figures in your head when we look at the ones that Equal Care has brought together. Ta-da! Looks like a lot. So we have in total non-trading income since we began. We have received 1.092 million pounds, which loads when you think of it all at once. So that is 670,000 in community shares, with our 2 share offers, the Pioneer offer, which raised 410, and the Back on Track, which raised around 250. Then the 98,000 in R&D tax credits, which is just lovely when the taxman gives you money. Oh, thanks. And then 324,000 in grants. This is excluding the Lottie grants. Or the remaining 75,000 of the Lottie grant to come. So that sounds like absolutely loads. We should be, all over the country by now. No. Next slide, please. So it's not as much as you think. When you split that out over the 6 years that Equal Care has been in existence, that's around £182,000 a year. Whack in a global pandemic on top. And then you have quite a long to-do list just to continue. When you think about what they're paying software engineers these days, which by the way is also not what we're paying software engineers. Software engineers come to us from, yes, love and commitment, and yeah, there's around the 50 to 60, around 50% pay cut that our software engineers take, which is just amazing, but also challenging. So it's also not a lot when you're thinking about, we are building a business just in Calderdale. That is a lot of work just to kind of develop all of the processes right from scratch, the ways of working, develop an entirely new model, and to do all of this on what is effectively a very small shoestring. It's really not enough when you're looking to start in other areas without kind of going grey. The seed funding to start a normal domiciliary care agency is around £250,000. We're looking at bringing that down to around £100,000 to be able to start a circle in a completely new area. But that is assuming that quite a lot of other things have come on stream, like platform, playbook, and sort of some some of which could be quite standardized ways of working or approaches and resources. Share offers are really expensive. So instead of being kind of a single sort of entrepreneur going and putting yourself in front of a lot of venture capital investors or angel investors, where all you need is effectively a deck. You need some strong financials and all of that, but that is really all you need. When you run a community share offer, that is a full marketing campaign. You need to reach, so for every single person we reach, we needed to reach about 50 people for one investor. And that is a lot of work. So to be able to raise, it cost around £25,000 to raise the first, to run the first share offer. The second share offer was significantly cheaper because we were depending a lot on our existing investor member base. But it still was not inconsiderable. So in short, if we want to achieve our ambitions before retirement, we need more money. And so this is to strengthen the platform team, sure, and to be able to have seed funding to launch in new areas. London is currently running on grants at the moment, but they will also need a little bit of a war chest to be able to start, to get up and running, to have enough money coming in to then to be able to pay the bills. So, next. There are issues with the way that organizations get their money. So that is one of the reasons that we've decided to go down the difficult but like the ethically pure route, I guess, in the way that we've looked to achieve our investment. So our investor members really care. I mean, they are angels in the original sense. They have invested not because they think they're going to get even a small return or any return, but they've invested because they want to see what we're doing happen. And that is actually, perhaps not surprisingly, a very small proportion of people. So it's hard to find people with such noble and lofty goals. We're very lucky that we found the people that we have, but it is tough to find those people. Normal investment methods are awful for other reasons. You end up in hock to your investors. You end up needing to extract a lot of money from the business over the course of its natural life in order to pay for your shareholders. And you also give there's a sort of silent promise that your investors will be able to achieve an exit because they can sell their shares to somebody else, or the business itself will be sold at some point in the future. We don't want to do any of that. That's not what. We're just not in that game. The only realistically available route for cooperatives for them to raise investment, and this is what all cooperatives, with maybe a couple of small exceptions, in the UK use when they need to raise capital, and that is withdrawable shares. Withdrawable shares are brilliant for pubs. They're actually even brilliant for wind farms and solar panel kind of installations. But for organisations like us, which are a little bit more of a wing and a prayer, because we are developing an intangible asset, which is the platform, and it's very much a service-oriented business, which carries more risk. So, you know, if it all goes wrong, we can't just sell our wind farm, you know, so there's that sort of element of risk to it as well. Withdrawable shares, you can't sell them. You can only wait until the cooperative can afford to return your investments. The cooperative cannot give you a return that relates to how well they've done during that year. It has to be fixed at the cap that they originally advertised, which currently is 2% below base rate for our investor members. And there are lots and lots of other different restrictions to using withdrawable shares. An organisation that is incredibly aligned to what we do recently said to me, well, the head of their social investment said, why would we ever look at bank? We just don't look at co-ops. They are irrelevant. There is absolutely no reason why we would use our not inconsiderable investment portfolio that runs into billions to invest anything in co-ops, because withdrawable shares are rubbish. Like, they are not what we want for our social impact investment portfolio. So we are not reaching organisations that are very aligned with us, who could invest in us, who could make a big difference to equal care because of that structure. Okay, so we need something that
still sticks with the cooperative principles. So we're not about to run off to Silicon Valley and say, hi, you rich billionaires. That stays true to our purpose and that stays within the law, boring. But something that also brings together a bit more of an opportunity for why you would become an investor in anything in the first place, which is that you expect to receive, or you want to receive, some kind of return that is going to be of direct benefit to you. So, next slide, please. Care shares. Now, this is kind of a mixed brainchild of Trevor, myself, and a recent investment member called Nicolette. And it's been sort of, I don't know, bumping around my brain for a few months. But this is what I would like to get an indicative vote from you all. And I don't think there'll be time for Q&A, but there will be a table around this afterwards and after you all have a chance to break. So, what is the care share? Having 3 formats today looks much better than the version. Okay. The idea of the care share is that it is protecting you, is protecting the cost of care against your future need or the future need of somebody else for care and support. In this country, unless you have less than 23,000 something in savings, you have to pay for your own care. That's a lot of people that have to dip into funds, dip into savings to be able to fund their own care costs. It is a crippling structural problem. It is not something that's going to get solved anytime soon. Various different governments have tried to tackle it. So the example here is that Invest in Equal Care in 2019, when we were selling the care for £18 an hour, in 2022, that cost had risen £21.60. So we have a 20% increase in the cost of care. You can, if you invest your care, invest in 2019, then in effect, your investment has increased by 20% by the time it comes to 2022. So, 2 options. One, you can recoup the whole of that investment through a savings in your care, so reduce your care bill by 20%, which is a straightforward conversion to the number of care hours that you get through equal care. And then option 2, if you're not in a position to do that, you don't need to do that, but you would like to realize your investment, is to transfer it or to sell it, in other words, to somebody who is paying for their own care. And you would do that at a discount. So you would get 10% back on your return, for example, and they would get a 10% discount on the care that they're currently paying for. So in essence, what we're proposing to create is a very, very small managed market, which is there to enable people who are receiving care and having to pay for their own care at the moment to receive a reduction in their care costs, and also to enable both our existing and future members to hedge against inflation for their cost of care and to also receive a financial return, which actually roughly tracks the increase in base rate, which we've obviously seen over the past couple of years. That's the idea. There is a series of hurdles that we would need to get over in order to actually make this happen. But the first one is we've got to change the rules. So Equal Care's rules at the moment only account for something for withdrawable shares. We are allowed in the law to say that we can offer transferable shares because no co-op ever does. That's not actually in the default rules that you use to start a co-op. So it's not in our rules, so we need to put it in. Secondly, we'd be looking to convert our existing shares. So this would allow our pioneer investor members who have been wonderful and and very patient, particularly with that they've put their capital in, but we haven't been able to even pay out that dividend, that 3.5%, that we were hoping to be able to do after the from 2022 onwards. But it would then allow them to receive a return that is in fact commensurate with the risk of them putting in the money at that point. Then by doing that, we can say not just to our members, but to other co-ops, look, this works, proof of concept. This could be really useful for other co-ops, not just us. And then to launch new investments using care shares as a method of doing that, probably in London. So that we can then look at the way of growing equal care co-op is using place-based investment. So you invest in your London co-op, you invest in that actually becoming a reality, but you're also investing in your partner's future, to be able to allow that investment to go further when you're suddenly in a position where you have to pay for your own care. It looks so easy when it's just 4 dots. Our biggest barrier will be the FCA. They are also looking at changing the legislation around co-ops this year, so we will be feeding into that to try and get this recognised at a national level. So with Treasury, with FCA, and when they write this new legislation in, which probably, well, depending on priorities. At the moment, they say it will be before the next election. Very unlikely, but yeah, whichever government is doing it, there is actually cross-party appetite for changing the rules around co-ops to make it easier to invest in them and to be able to welcome them into a thriving social investment sector. It's not up on there, but 210 million or thereabouts has been invested into co-ops since they began, since withdrawable shares began. And I think last 2022 was 1.5 billion in all of social. This is social investment. This is the kind of thing we're doing. This is people for purpose investors wanting to invest into organisations that want to make change and do good in the world. So, as it turns out, we don't just have to change the way care and support happens. We need to change the law for co-ops to be able to grow as well. You know, let's just add it to the to-do list. So it's step 1 of adding that to the to-do list.
Emma, we have a question from
Amazing.
Nicolette.
6 minutes to answer it.
Hey.
Okay. Hi, Nicolette.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm an enthusiast of the care shares idea. I can see that it's got it's going to need a lot of piloting and a lot of getting through the regulation. I just wanted to make a couple of observations. I'm a little bit concerned, Emma, to hear you talk about it as a market, because that word market embodies a bit of the transactional approach to care and everything which we hate about the mainstream approach to care. And I also think it doesn't emphasize that this idea of a care share has got to be very place-based, because there's a lot of trust to make it work. There's got to be a lot of trust involved. So it's only going to work in a particular place, or if you're passing on your care shares to somebody else who actually can need them at that time. It's not going to be sort of formulaic. It may not be a sort of 10% each, or I don't know. But I just wanted you to be wary of that. It's going to be a very contextual type of approach.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so 2 things there. One, the reason that we should be thinking about markets, in my opinion, that the reason that other cooperatives don't use transferable shares is because there is no market. There is absolutely no incentive for anyone to buy a share in a co-op from an existing investor member, because there are rules around whether or not they can go up in value, they can't, and there are kind of other sort of restrictions around being able to sell that share. So there is the problem overall with cooperative growth is that there is no market. There is no way of being able to bring new money into the system apart from through our community investors and some very enlightened institutional investors. So I don't think that we should just, you know, run away from that word. Like, it doesn't have to be a dirty word. And in terms of the how that transaction happens, Equal Care still remains the arbiter of those transactions. So for a share transfer to take place, that is something that then is consented to by the cooperative. If we think about the overall impact, people are currently suffering from the incredibly high rise in the cost of living, and this is a way to be able to protect against that. You can't do that without there being a transfer at some stage or another, or without there being one person who's able to make that investment, say back in 2019, and then another person who's then able to benefit from the fruits of that investment in terms of their care in 2023. So, you know, yes, there will be lots of conversations. I think this is quite a rich conversation to be having with membership at this stage in our development. And I think this is also an opportunity to think about the potential impacts on the wider cooperative movement, which also suffers from many of these same problems. And I include the co-op group in that as well.
Okay, we've got another question from Carmen.
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna respond to the previous comments. Not all of us investor members are local residents. I'm not. I invested because I believed in the concept, and I'm actually trying to assist with setting up a care co-op in Brighton and Hove, because I really believe in the concept and I really want that to widen. And also a lot of us will be moving during our lifetimes, so you know, I might well end up moving to Hebden Bridge. I don't think I will, but I could move to London, for example. And so I think the concept of transferable shares and a marketplace would be sensible in that context. But a question for you is, have you actually spoken to people in the Labour Party, given that that's who's likely to be in government next year, and what does Rachel Reeves think?
Do we know what Rachel Reeves thinks?
No, not yet, but we have had conversations with shadow cabinet
Yes,
ministers.
we have had conversations with shadow cabinet ministers. Equal Care, by virtue of being a bit of a rare organisation, does mean that we have had some priority access to the Labour Party from various different routes. So Adam earlier this year went down to Westminster to talk to a group of shadow cabinet MPs. And this was around looking at alternative business and increasing the availability of money to go into these businesses, which is the shift overall to a much kinder economy, a much fairer economy that would just be better anyway, and which Equal Care would benefit from. But sorry, on the place-based points, yes, that is exactly why these shares need to be transferable, is so that we can still accept investment from people where there isn't an immediate intention to start a circle in that particular place. But what we do find is that, you know, the strength of community shares, or the strength of cooperative shares, is that by the fact they are place-based, you suddenly get this wonderful group of supporters before you've even started. And from those supporters, so investor members are care workers, they're people looking for support, they're family members, you know, they are a crucial resource for any new circle starting, and the kinds of skill sets that they can bring as well are really, really important.
We've got one more question from Tom. One more question in the room. We've got a couple of minutes, so if it's a really meaty
We've got one more question online, if you can super quick.
We'll be talking about care shares in the World Cafe, so please come to members.
I was
in the spirit of developing a conversation, I'll be very brief because I don't expect a big answer here. I just want to throw something into the mix. This issue about marketing, business, and all this sort of language which we don't like here. Unfortunately, the care sector, so-called care sector, is a big business. We're talking about multi-billion here. I'm just going to suggest you just be a little bit bolder in your pitch. You know, I will suggest it. We don't want to do these things at venture capitalism. We want to be a nicer, kind of sort of company. I think you should be much bolder than that. It's not just something that we don't want to do. If you look at things like the Henley Group and others, what venture capital done is undermine the rights and welfare and care needs of disabled people across the country. It's very destructive, very harmful, lack of accountability. And if you're going to develop as an organisation, consider us being a pinprick in the overall sector, because that's all you are. That's all you are realistically in that market. Be a bit bolder and say we want to develop these principles. We recognise the other principles that are undemocratic, harmful, hurtful, and damaging to the rest of the people. There's things like the independent living movement that you develop by disabled people in response to that. Maybe you should be trying it again.
Thank you very much. Here.
Emma, I've got a very quick question from Richard online, really quick. Richard, there's a cut off mute, Richard.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, very quick. I see a particular problem with this because if you're converting existing shares into care shares and even a modest number of existing investors want to sell their shares to people who are looking for discounted care, they could sell their shares, say, at a 10 or 20% discount themselves. The care user is going to get a discount and your cash flow is going to become very unpredictable. How are you going to deal with that?
That's the managed part of the word managed market. So yes, there is in fact a question on this on the members briefing sheet. But yeah, just to state it, the board still has a duty of care to the co-op, so we wouldn't be accepting a conversion at a rate that is likely to then affect cash flow in a way that's then dangerous to being able to continue as an organisation. But the current size that we are now, if all of our pioneer shares were converted, then it would take around 2 years, 2 to 3 years, 2.5 years to be able to kind of convert them all at our current size. So it wouldn't be an all at once thing, because obviously we do still need to use fiat currency for, well, everything really. So the conversion rate would also be something that's set by the board in order to manage that risk. Let's just do it. My hands up, we think, because either I will work hard on this, which is, and I'm a resource of the cooperative, so if members think that this is a complete waste of time, then I'll do something else. So that's why I guess I'm looking for an indicative vote to see whether this could be something. Okay, right, that's fine. All those in favour
of having a look at it.
Of having a look. And yeah, we would need to call an extraordinary general meeting to change the rules. All those against? If not, any abstentions? Okay, thanks everyone. So that was a non-binding vote because yeah, there's a lot of work to do to turn it into a binding vote. But anyone who would like to work more actively with me on this, please talk to me. Because it really could have some excellent implications for the rest of the sector as well if we manage to pull this off. Thank you.